Oh, hello. Didn't spot you there. It's ages since I've done any astro imaging or any practical astronomy in general. The clocks are just about to go back here in the United Kingdom, but we've had a very cloudy, damp summer, and I've had very few opportunities to do any astronomy when I've not been working and when I've been home at the weekend. I've got my Quark solar filter on here with my little mono imaging camera. I haven't used that since April when I put it on. I've been hoping for a clear Saturday when I could do some imaging, but unfortunately that's not been the case. However, now we've got some nice dark nights, hopefully some clear ones coming on soon, so I'm going to wipe away some of the incredible cobwebs, chase out the spiders, put my deep sky imaging camera on, and then I will be set up for the first clear night that we get. You can tell it's autumn by the sound of all the leaf blowers going in the other gardens. So I'm now putting on my deep sky camera with the focal reducer. An EOS 600D that was modified by Central DS. Basically they threw most of the Canon camera away, just kept the sensor. And I've got this coupled now with the focal reducer, which I got at the same time as the scope. I'm hoping that I can remember the order that everything goes on. That's nice and secure. So this 600D, it's got a Peltier cooler on the back. They've added a filter drawer in front here, which is rather nice. And I've got a light pollution filter in at the moment, but that's pretty neat. I really like that feature on this camera. And here's the handset that controls the cooling. I've got it set to -20 below ambient, and it doesn't take very long to get down to temperature. You can see it's only been on about a minute and already it's down to -11, so it'll be to -20 with another minute or so. So quite a nice little setup, although the 600D of course is now getting on. There are much better newer cameras, but maybe I think about investing in a new astronomy camera once I've got back into astronomy and I can justify the expense. And I am of course a Mac user, so I use my MacBook Air and I've got Parallels installed on that, so I can use Sequence Generator Pro for my image capture. So I'm all set up now. I am going to do a dry run tomorrow when it's light and I can take the observatory roof off. It's dark now, but it's also very cloudy and a bit damp. And then I'm going to run some trials, so I shall be set up ready for the first night. So we might have a look at that in the morning. Well, who would have thought? 2 days later, I've got a clear night. It's not the best night because it's very damp, so there's lots of moisture in the atmosphere, but I can see stars. I've managed to connect all the cables in the right order. I'm going to plug my MacBook in now and see if I can get everything to behave as it should do. Then I'm going to do some test exposures, ready for the next really good, clear, sharp seeing conditions. So let's see how we go. Let me show you something really bad that's happened. You probably recall the video I made when I recoated the roof to try and keep it waterproof because I was having some leaks. That worked for a little while. That was well over a year ago now, maybe 18 months. But if you look up here, I'm afraid the roof's leaking. We've had some really heavy rain and even the plywood decking, which obviously wasn't marine quality plywood, has gone rotten, and I can poke my finger into the edge of the plywood. It's not too bad now because we've had a few days of dry weather, but we had a couple of weeks of torrential rain and it's really not good. I'm going to have to strip the whole of the roof off when it gets to spring and some better weather, replace the plywood decking, felt over the top, and then shingles. Basically the problem is that when they put the shingles on the roof of the observatory, which actually do look very nice, they've nailed through the felt and caused penetrations, and if I don't fix that I'm going to end up with a rotten observatory before not too long. About a year ago my Windows laptop gave up the ghost. It was getting on for 10 years old and every time it restarted I had problems with it. So I decided to use my MacBook Air and I put Windows Parallel on that, loaded Sequence Generator Pro, EQ Mod and all the Windows-based programs that I really liked, and I had quite a lot of success imaging the moon and for some solar imaging that I did, and I think I used it on one occasion for a deep sky object, but it's been such a miserable, wet, cloudy summer that I didn't really give it much of a workout, and last winter I was pretty busy too. With renewed impetus from my local astronomy club and the special interest group for astrophotography, I've been getting back into imaging, and I've had a very unsuccessful evening playing around with the Mac because the ports kept disconnecting. I've basically got 4 devices connected. I've got the camera, I've got the auto guider, I've got the scope, and I've got the focuser, and I couldn't get them all to connect simultaneously. One would connect, then another one would disconnect, and then that would connect, and it was basically a real pain, and I had a wasted evening, which was quite a clear one. So I was talking to my friends in the astro imaging group, and one of them said that he used a Raspberry Pi connected to his Mac inside, because one of the advantages was that it doesn't tie your Mac up in the observatory, and if it's damp you don't particularly want an expensive MacBook hanging outside, although they are very robust. So I took the plunge and I bought a Raspberry Pi. This is the version 4B Raspberry Pi. I got 8 megabytes of memory to make it nice and fast, but it's 4 megabytes is what's recommended. I went and got the 256 gigabytes memory card, the SD card that goes in the back here, because I wanted to store images on there and download the astronometry catalogues for when I'm out and about observing. So hopefully this is all I need to run my scope. I can connect to it from my MacBook, and I can connect to it from my iPad, so that gives me lots of flexibility. I just need to rewire the scope and get it fixed up, and I'm away. I've downloaded the Astroberry software, I flashed the disk. It uses KSTARS based on the EKOS operating system. So now I'm going to mount this on here, I'm going to connect everything up, shorten my cables or buy some new cables, and hopefully I should have a nice neat setup, and the next clear night I should be ready to start imaging. That's not the tidiest setup, but at least I've got all the cables connected. The little Raspberry Pi is now powered up and the red light is on. At least I'm getting some good images off the camera. So here's M33 nicely centered in the display, and there looks to be some reasonable detail in the image. This is the focuser, so you can see quite a nice shape over the star, and it's selected a star which it's focusing on. So here you can see I've got my sequence set up. See the HFR value here, so quite happy with the way that's working. This is the plate solving, so the plate solving worked pretty well, and this is guiding. So of course it's linked into PhD2 but controlled from the EKOS interface. I'm dithering in between frames, so quite aggressive dithering to get rid of any hot or cold pixels, and that seems to work quite well. And here's another image that's come off the screen, looking quite good. I'm actually quite pleased with the detail that I'm getting. Living on the flight path between Heathrow and Gatwick doesn't help. My verdict actually is that this is a lot more stable than Sequence Generator Pro, and I never said I'd say that, but as I've got used to the software, I have to say I'm very satisfied with it. One of the things that I quite like doing through the KSTARS EKOS interface is looking at what else is in my image, and you can do some basic photometry and it will ascribe labels to the different objects in the field of view. So we know that M33 is there, but in addition to that you can see that there are various stars and nebulae that are being catalogued, which normally I wouldn't pay much attention to, but with this software I can instantly get the labels on the screen and I can have a look at the different objects that are in the same field of view, which is a great way to do astronomy, and rather than just taking pretty pictures actually helps you to understand a bit more about what you're looking at and actually identify what you're looking at too. There's lots to see in every individual frame. M33 is rather a beautiful object, and the spiral arms of the galaxy stand out really quite nicely. I'm looking forward to processing this image and seeing what I get. Maybe the data is not the best quality because I know it's quite noisy and there's been quite a lot of high cloud and moisture in the air, so I know the data is not going to be super good. The guiding accuracy is quite good. EKOS gives you 2 ways of looking at the data. You can see the bullseye on the right hand side. That shows the commands going through and how well it's centered. And then obviously from the graph you can see the guiding and the pulses going in to correct the tracking. One of the most exciting things to do once you've registered, calibrated and integrated the images, and I'm using PixInsight to do that, is to open the image. So I integrated these earlier, and what I want to do now is open up the master and just see what I can see. I think there's about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours worth of data, and I did calibrate. I took flats, bias and darks, and they're all integrated to remove some of the artifacts and noise from my image. So there's not much to see when you first bring up the integrated image. I'm going to do a screen stretch here and just see what we can find. So here we are, applying an automatic screen stretch to the image. There looks to be quite a lot of detail here. It's very green, so there's a lot of noise, but I can take that out in post-processing. But I'm actually very pleased with the amount of information that is in the image, and I think I can do some good things. So I'm going to come back shortly once I've had a go at processing and show you how my final image turned out. So this was the first challenge from the Astro Imaging group in my local astronomy club, and there's a new target for next month which I'm certainly going to go after. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then please consider leaving a like, subscribing to my channel, and wish you all clear skies.